And can you, I think Anita, one of my students is joining. Have you let her in?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's here, I think. Okay, she's from NIFT. So they wanted to also be a part of this. And there are other few interns here from NIFT who are listening to the conversation as well.
Oh, okay. No pressure. Okay. So just before, like to set the foundation, can you tell me your name and where you're based?
Yeah, my name is Namrita.
Yes.
And the surname I use is Biome right now. I prefer to have my work surname than anything else. So yeah, I'm changing my name to Namrata Biome, but I'm in Ahmedabad right now. I just came to the city 3-4 months back.
Okay.
Before that I was in Goa, and all my life I've been in Kolkata.
Okay. So how did you come up with the name Biome? Like, where does it come from?
My son actually gave me the name when I started around 9 years back. So I was beginning to work with this natural dyed fabric that I had newly found, and kids are very bright. I believe that children are more aware and very fresh than adults. So I look for suggestions from children more than adults. So my son, I think he was 11, 12 years at that time. Yeah. So I asked him about a name, and biome he found out. So biome means an environment where everything is natural. Actually, the whole atmosphere, stratosphere, and biosphere, everything comes under biome.
Okay.
So yeah, he said that it's a place where everything is natural. So maybe that's, and I love the name because also the word om comes, which is one of my favorite words. So biome. It's not biome, but biome. Yeah.
Okay. So what's your current occupation right now?
I haven't you looked that up?
No, I mean, how would you like? What would you say you do?
No, no, I'm kidding. It's okay. So I am the co-founder of Color Ashram Foundation, which is a space, an innovation studio for natural dyes and a training center. And I'm the founder of Biome Conscious Fashion, which is a brand which only works with natural dyed fabrics and clothing. And I started it around 8-9 years back. Yeah.
So you work with mostly dyeing, right?
Natural dyed fabrics and natural dyeing training. Yeah. Right now, both. Yeah.
Okay. And so when you began your career and where you're right now, how has the evolution been for you? What are the stages?
Sure. So the first stage was a seeking stage, I can say, where, one second, can you tell her? I'll call her back after half an hour. Okay. Yeah, the seeking stage. So did not, I was never happy with consumerism. What I was looking around me, I was just very, very dissatisfied. And I didn't know why everybody is making clothes. Like, I didn't know till then what is chemical dyes or herbal dyes. I had no idea that clothes can be harmful in any way. I think just like anybody who's not in textiles, and I was not from a textile background at all. I had done my management, family resource management, and BSc honors in home science. And but I just had, like every other girl, I think everyone, be it a software developer or a lawyer or anyone, all girls and women love clothes. And at some point, everybody wants to work with clothes. So I also loved clothes, and I love to make my own clothes. I never like to buy out from clothes from outside because I wanted to be different. I didn't like the same language with everybody spoke. So that was always at the back of my mind. But one thing I decided was never to make more clothes, because I think this is one of the most indulgent and most craving field, which is like, it's already a huge fire. I feel like nobody needs to fuel this anymore. So if at all, I thought that why can't women and girls can have better career than just fashion and clothes. So this is something I did not want to do, and until then I was looking for something more meaningful. So I was not interested in any product. Like, if you tell me sell this, sell that, nothing interested me. I wanted to understand, why should I sell it? Like, what does it mean? When I came to know about natural light clothing, and this friend of mine who's my partner now, who is working with natural light fabrics on industrial scale, Arun. And when I came to know about his work, which I had not heard anywhere, like that time I'm talking about 10 years back in Kolkata, there was no word about natural dyed fashion anywhere. Not even organic cotton was not that famous. So I thought this is great, and if somebody is doing this, this is something I would love to spread to people. So this caught my interest because it was conscious consumption. So I think for me, the consciousness in everything is extremely important. Why we do what we do is very important. Mindless eating, sleeping, drinking, and just consuming and using things did not make sense to me. So it appealed to my spirit, I would say, more than anything else. And then, of course, I thought that maybe I'll also make a career in this. Yeah, that's how I started.
Um, uh, uh, so when you talk to people about natural dyeing or making conscious choices, uh, how do you navigate the conversation in such a way that doesn't sound like you're preaching to them, or you're like, you're telling them you have to wear natural, or you should, like, it shouldn't sound preachy, or like you're pushing on to them. Like, how do you navigate in a way that they on their own would want to do it?
So this is not a religion. Sustainability is not a religion at all.
Right.
Neither it is a media or advertising. It is pure logic. What else do you need to know from what is happening around you to just take a look and see that we are polluting the very sources that sustain us? How can we proceed to do that? How can we be lost in luxury and different kinds of craving when our food, soil, and water, three things, are getting air which we breathe is getting polluted day by day with these things? So to me it was just very logical, and that's how I tell people. So first of all, there are some I think wrong myths we have, that we have to save nature. Nature doesn't need anybody's saving. This planet surely doesn't need anybody's saving. Human beings have come here for a few years, but before that there was ice age, there was dinosaurs, there was no one, but the planet existed. So planet is not going anywhere. We have to save ourselves. The human race is going to be extinct, definitely. I mean, it's no surprise because scientists have already given a year now, like, that maybe another 500 years, by the way we are speeding up with the contamination and, degrading of resources. Human beings are at the verge of extinction. There'll be a new race, and probably, I don't know what will happen next. So for me, this is a logic that I try to share with people, that we don't have to save nature, we don't have to protect nature, we don't have to be in nature. We are nature. We are, you and me are nature as much as the tree and other things. So whatever nature is made up of, we are also made up of the same things. So if we are polluting our very source, for me, it's nature is also like mother.
Right.
If you're okay to give some poison to your mom every day, think in that simple terms is what I say, then you should be okay to drop poison on the soil and do all of that what you're doing. Because it is the ultimate mother that nurtures everyone. Without it, we cannot think of sustaining ourselves. We can't breathe without, and we have no patch of air for ourselves. Like, you can have an air conditioning in a room, but what else? We have to go out of the room. You have to anyway take that air also. Like, there's no single patch of water. There's no, I would say, what do you call that? Individual patch of water, air, or soil available. All our systems are linked.
Yeah.
So if you start pollution somewhere else, doesn't matter, everything travels to everybody, and all of us are together in this. So I want to appeal to the common sense and logic of people, nothing else, nothing more than that, I think. Yeah.
Right. When we ask people what they understand from sustainability, I think everyone has a very different understanding or definition for it. So, what, according to you, would you say is sustainability?
Sustainability is to be in harmony with nature. And this is a very cliche phrase, so I think people don't even understand what is the meaning of this. It's like saying love nature, but you don't know how to love. You don't even understand what love is in this world today. So I'll tell you some just basic, very simple fact. We should make and use things which can biodegrade easily, like any natural material does. If we create, so there's a cycle in nature. There's a birth, there's a death, again there's a revival, and again birth. That everything is cyclical in nature.
Right.
Somewhere we have cut this cycle and said, okay, no more degradation. Plastic will stay like this for 500 years. Whatever toxin we introduce, it will kill the system or whatever. So the idea is to just follow the cycle. If whatever you work with, whether it's natural or it's man-made, the question is not natural or man-made. The question is biodegradable or not biodegradable. That should be the question. And another question, the second one is toxic or non-toxic. Now, our soil, water, and our air has a certain quality which makes us alive and healthy. And the variation in that quality, it makes the environment toxic for us. So toxicity is nothing but the increase or decrease of some component or pH or some elements which affect human health. And not just human health, actually. This is also very funny because we only think that we are the exclusive living species on this planet. So even trees, animals, all other beings with whom we share the planet. So that level to be maintained is what we need to be aware of. When you do things in a laboratory, say you did an experiment and you worked with something which you said this is not harmful because you're doing in a very small quantity, but when you think about that quantity to grow in an industry level, if it is going, that is a quantum you need to question, that in the quantum, is it going to become toxic? If it's going to become toxic, let's choose something less toxic. So whatever is happening is in a huge quantity, we should look at toxicity and biodegradability. And biodegradable, I would say, if something degrades, everything on the planet is biodegradable technically, even plastics. They may take 1,000 years or 500 years, but they will degrade at some point. But there are two things here to note. One is biodegradable naturally would be between 1 to 3 months. I may be wrong with the figure, but you can check. It's somewhere between a very small span. It is not 500 years for degrading anything which is natural. Second thing is, when something degrades, it should not leach toxic elements in the soil or water. So even if, say, polyester clothes, which you throw in the landfill, when they degrade, first of all, they'll not degrade because they are plastic clothing. Secondly, if even cotton clothing for that matter, if they have been treated with very harmful chemicals, then they will leach the chemical in the soil, just like our e-waste also does, just like, petroleum, the oil spills in the ocean, all those kind of things. So degrading in a quality which will not poison the soil. If you can take care of these three things, toxicity, biodegradability, go ahead and do anything, whether it's man-made or it's super-made, whatever made, doesn't matter. For me, natural is only makes sense because nature doesn't do mistakes that we have done. Although we are part of nature, we are the part which has really broken the laws of natural systems. So yeah, so nature is at best an excellent teacher because it has sustained the planet for so many years. It knows how to balance things. It doesn't think only about one thing. So I guess that's what we need to learn.
Right, right. Can you give me some examples of how you practice sustainability in areas other than textiles, like maybe daily life?
Sure. First, you tell me whatever I've been telling you, does it make sense to you?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
is it something you've heard a lot of times and it's
no,
still
no, it
boring because
definitely
the same?
makes sense. No, no, definitely. There's a lot of sense
Okay,
that you're
yeah.
talking. And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, we
All
actively
right.
talk about this very often.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, talking about it, and it should make sense to you so much that you are doing something poisonous and that this is going to come back to you. If these two things you can understand, I think you will definitely think about making better choices. About my personal life and outside work, it's been very difficult to be sustainable. For my longest time that I've understood a lot of things, like I have attended a lot of training sessions. My friends into organic farming, organic cosmetic making, organic this and that, everything. But what happens is when I'm working, I know all of these things, how to do these things, but I have no time and energy to invest and do those things. So the steps I have seen, so ultimately I was feeling extremely sad and troubled because I know everything is what I'm doing is not clean, not toxic, not degradable or whatever. But I was like, with sense of when do I take out time to adapt a new process. So the few things that I started with, I had to calm myself down and say that, okay, I cannot change my life. It's a very difficult thing to be sustainable because we are surrounded with solutions which are all chemical. And there are very few. And the good ones which were there, we've removed them from our system and we've adopted to, better solutions, so-called better solutions. So it's been extremely difficult. Then I settled for a few things. I was feeling guilty every day. Then I made some peace. So in my house, I use cloth bags whenever I leave home. In my car, there are some cloth bags or jute bags every time there. I do not take plastics from people. If I order things from, say, a shop downstairs, and I give them the plastic bag, or if I am, Amazon, if I'm using, then I recycle the packaging. So I have a factory here. I mean, we work out of this space, Kala Ashram. I bring the packets here, Amazon, and I say, like, even the food, we get an excellent packaging, right? Some packagings are really good for food because they're food grade. And I keep it, and I want to someday recycle all the packaging to courier my stuff in, because courier needs packaging, plastic. So not using virgin packaging is something I'm working towards, and I'm quite close in my personal life. I've been able to take care of. I've not been able to do it in work as much. I've got few samples of packaging which are actually biodegradable, the plastic level, which is good. So I might try to switch to it. Besides that, I like to eat food in the house and not order food. So whenever I think about food or anything, if going out, I carry a tiffin box in my car. There's a steel glass with a lid, which is always there with us. So I do not take any disposable items from outside. These are a few things. In bath, I've started using some home things like curd, rice flour, basin, all those things, and I'm still slowly trying to switch towards that, or maybe use organic soaps, because detergents and washing the soaps are actually extremely polluting as well. Little do we realize that, but they are a huge polluting factors. I do not use any chemical clothes or any synthetic clothing, except for my winter stuff, or say some kind of old stuff. What my old clothes are before I got into this are there.
Right.
I reuse them, but otherwise right now I'm wearing everything which is organic cotton, maybe, or cotton and herbal dyes. So no more purchasing any fabrics from outside. These
Right.
few things, yeah.
Do you think companies that mass produce, maybe not overproduce, but mass produce, can be sustainable?
Yes, of course. They can be sustainable because that's what we are working towards. But it's a very difficult thing to work with sustainable concepts in mass scale, because that whole system of doing everything in a very big scale doesn't work in a natural process. At least we have not seen that. Like, say, natural dyeing, for example. Natural dyeing, my partner has been able to do it in industrial scale. He's a pioneer of doing industrial natural dyeing. You can look up in India, there is no one that is can do thousands of meters dyeing on machine with natural dyes. We can do it. In Ahmedabad, in this place where we are, we can do it. So the the idea for him was that it should be, if there has to be an impact, it has to be in the mass production areas. If we do it in a very handicraft and a very small and a niche form, it's never going to have any impact. You're going to probably have a good feeling, but impact wise it will not. So that part we are trying to work on. And with the mass scale, what happens is that now there are some different problems with natural dyes. Like, colors may fade if they lie too much in stock. Like, stock, never air it, never wash it, it may fade. Just lying there. So just like food and things which were best when they are cooked fresh, or they have an expiry date, natural things will have an expiry date. So if mass consumption, you're talking about, the cycle of logistics is such that you're making and selling, moving forward, it is okay. If you're thinking about storing, then there will be restrictions. It's not impossible, it's possible, but there'll be a lot of restrictions in understanding. Hello?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think you're,
My network
yeah.
is a little low, but I heard what you said.
Yeah, so I don't know if I can answer the question completely, and I don't know which material are you talking about. I'm referring to clothes only, right? I do not have knowledge of other things, but I'm sure organic food is already being made in mass scale or whatever. But as much as I've understood is that everything natural gets fungus or gets bad or gets faded or something happens to it with time. So that is one problem that you need to work out, the turnaround time and the thing.
Yeah. What would you say that for the role that you play, other than the creative skills, what do you feel like is what skills do you think that you use very often?
Oh, taking care of my overheads and marketing absolutely in a different way. I do not follow the traditional marketing method. It doesn't work for sustainability. First of all, the costs are very high. We our input cost, because we're using organic cotton, herbal dyes, the material cost is very high. Usually, the raw material cost for people is very cheap, and their maximum cost is marketing. So in this, it's a reverse, because the input and material cost is so high, the marketing cost has to be very small. So I use a lot of creative methods to collaborate with people, or to do events, or to create awareness and a language for my work, so that people identify me with natural dyes, because I'm not doing anything else. If I was doing something else and then something else, then people would get always mixed up. But when you are integral to work with one kind and just say, I am only about natural dyes, then somehow the people can retain that memory. And so working, thinking about creative ways to do marketing, not spend money too much, and try to use people's spirit and passion into this, because whatever I'm doing, I feel like it is if, on everybody's behalf, the contribution towards sustainability is what probably some sustainable people are doing, because normally in lives we do not do anything sustainable. So I tell people, if you find someone doing sustainable work, please support it. At least if you can't do it, you can't consume, support it by buying sometimes, or by spreading the word. There are so many, ways to do. And why you should do it is because, after all, it's your life. Your children are going to inherit this planet. Let's think about, like, after a certain point of time in life, everybody looks to contributing something to society.
Yeah.
Everybody. I think at one point we get tired of doing everything for ourselves only. So I try to appeal to people to say and do those things, so which makes me uh, which makes me the need to be very interactive and present, and communicate with people. That's what I try to do. Even this answering your this thing, I just, if a young person is trying to say they want to understand this thing, I want to be able to have time to talk to them. Who knows where you will carry this? Who knows if I give you the right seeds, and if I give you logic? I cannot give you belief to, packaged into a faith and say, oh, believe in this cult or something. It's not like that. I want to give you common sense, so that you can remember. Common sense is never forgotten, actually. Once you've understood something, I don't think you can undo it. So that's my way of just being creative in taking care of reaching out and marketing, you can say other things.
Right.
And yeah, of course, I use barter a lot. So I believe that sustainable people, one thing, I mean, not all, but most sustainable people, one thing they always have a little problem with is money. They don't have too much of money to spend, because they are also limiting their lifestyle. Sometimes it's not possible to have, unless you have a capital already. I'm talking about running business in this sustainable field. At least if you're doing the right way, you cannot. I have found that you can never do that, because if you make unnatural profit, which means you have to sell at unnatural price, which I don't know how to sell or what to do. But what I'm trying to say is that I find that, so this is an example I'm going to give you. There's a friend of mine who's an organic farmer in Udaipur, and he makes lovely, he's a complete farmer at heart, and he makes lovely food there with organic farmers. So he had a wedding in the family, and he said he wants to have natural clothes. He was saying, it's so painful for me to see my wife and mother go buy this chemical dyed clothing. I said, fine, I make clothes for you. You don't, and I know that he would be, I cannot ask money from him. He's already, I don't think he'll be able to pay. Even though he would, I did not. I said, in this exchange, you give me food. So whatever the bill amount was, in exchange, I bought his organic food. and I used it, you know. So I think barter is a very creative way for sustainable people to work with. The currency should not always be money. Right now also I'm making my website for Color Ashram, and in one of the videos I think few months back in Goa I had said that, you know, I'm open to barter if anybody wants to make a website and wants to run a workshop. And actually working with someone in US who's making a website for me, and I'm going to be sharing a workshop for that amount of money that, you know, she's working on. So yeah, barter is something I feel it works.
That's pretty cool. But
Mm.
so for someone who isn't into the business, suppose if it's someone like a common person like me, do you
Hmm.
think it's a sustainable choices is a privilege for the common man?
It is not a privilege from consumption point of view, and to some extent I'll explain you why, but it's definitely a privilege if water cannot be got from sustainable work in the beginning. In the initial years of setting up your work, you need to have your bread and butter should be provided by someone. Your bed, bread and butter, all three things. You can't be getting out from this because there are a lot of other expenses of work, you know. But once you are settled, because in this people take time to identify what you're doing. Once you've made an identity and a mark, then probably you'll be able to sustain other costs. So I'm not saying that you won't be able to sustain. I sustain my business cost with my work. I started with a loan. I had zero capital, and I returned the loan back, and I was able to take care of my business expenses with my income. But then, when I think I really thank God because I didn't have to worry about my bed, bread and butter. If those things were on my list, then it would be, I think, I don't know how to do it because these things are very few in supply, very few people make. You will also start in a very small quantity, so the costs are always very high. It's not a mass product which you get everywhere. Look for natural light fabric. Where would you find it? There'll be hardly any people, and the people who are doing, they do sell it at an expense rate because again nobody is buying that. Very few people are buying because of the mismatch in demand and supply. There's no demand for these things out of, in fashion, if you see how many people want natural light clothing, no one, probably just no one, you know. So you have to create a demand for people to buy this. So there is definitely in market, in the industry, there's not supply of raw material is not cheap because there's no demand of it, right? Because there's no demand and there's no this thing, and it's a hand process. For hand process is more expensive than an industrial process.
Yeah.
So the yeah, I was coming to say that cost actually, because just economics wise in the beginning it doesn't make sense unless you have some capital, some support of some family member, or you have some privilege to, you know, and they say that okay, we are there, you establish your work. That's what I'm trying to say. Otherwise it's very difficult. So that is one thing. And on the other side, on the personal side, I would say that we consume so much today. If we go to a movie hall in say Inox theaters, we spend easily 500 bucks on a movie and a popcorn, more than that maybe. If you look about the other expenses, so I did this for initial years of my life. I said okay, beauty treatments out, coffees, extra coffees out, this pampering out. Like I stuck to my basics. I said I can treat my hands and legs and hair, everything at home. There are ways to do it. I can wear, I never needed a branded shoe, so I'm okay. I needed a good shoe and I can buy one instead of many. I always bought good things, but I just bought one. And so if you are shopping, instead of buying 10, if you buy two or three, but buy a good consumption thing, it's possible. Moreover, if you're creative, you'll find out there are a lot of sustainable people who are doing, very good, reasonable pricing products as well. You ultimately find only the rich ones, the more expensive and exorbitant ones, but it's not like that. You will actually get cheaper products if you look properly and you see that circuit. So it's possible to buy organic food at a reasonable rate. eat less, don't waste. We waste food so much. If you have to buy organic food and waste, it's criminal. So you have to buy problems. So you can adjust, and you can see how you can easily consume organic and sustainable. You can keep a cloth bag. It doesn't take much. Invest one time in a good, you know, travel kit with a fork, spoon, knife, or whatever. There's so many ways. For herbal dyeing, especially, we are giving something very, very unique at Color Ashram. So what we are teaching is how to dye your own clothes. If you do a dyeing workshop, you can actually re-dye your own clothes. You don't have to buy organic cotton. Whatever cotton you've got, blend or natural cotton, whatever clothes you've got, if they are white and light in color, like the t-shirt you're wearing, even that can be re-dyed. So don't, if you can't buy a new garment, you can at least learn to upcycle your old garments. That is one option we are opening up. So what I'm saying is that there are ways. You need to do a little research and spend time. If time is expensive, then I think it's a problem.
That is true. It does need a lot of time, but like
Yeah.
a little bit of investment with time, I think it takes a long way.
And I think you need to let go of the pressure which the school, colleges, parents, society put on you. If you're in a race to complete this, complete that, and all of these things which which are not hard, which are hardly useful in your life, actually, if you really ask me, today's all systems are teaching all redundant things mostly. I don't know why we are not thinking. The world is changing so fast. Everything is becoming like till COVID. So many things were different, and in COVID now everything has so many things have become redundant now. If we are not ready to move ahead with time, and usually schools and universities don't do that because they have this comfort of continuing the same course and the same way. I don't know if your institute is not teaching you natural light fashion and sustainable fashion, you should tell them. I would like to approach them also, because nowadays it's not like virgin, creating more virgin material with chemicals is just not viable. Let's think about either recycling, upcycling, or working with sustainable products only. No more chemical things. So I think those things should be made mandatory. And if you, even if you're a student, even if you're a child or whatever in your family, you can make your choices. Even if the adults and the elders can't see it, you can see it. Fight it out. Why waste time in doing things that are not going to be useful anymore?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've had this like recently I've realized, and like a bunch of my other batches realized that every time we talk about sustainability or making like looking for a better option, it's coming from the students and not from the institute. And I think that's something we would want to bring it up with the institute and ask them to actively make it a part of the course. So as designers, when we step out in the industry, we all have that in our mind, and it's not just like a few people who think
Right, right, right. Absolutely. In fact, I love you to do something for me if you can. If you can talk to your students, and if they want to, so I'm ready. Kalashram is ready to come and give a presentation to NID and the students maybe about what we do and what solution we are offering. So we have a solution of teaching you the process as well through workshops. If your institute invites, also, we can set up in your lab a corner, I mean, a natural dye lab, which is not as tedious as a traditional one. Our processes are very innovative.
okay.
So we are open to giving a whole new system to the labs. We would love to go through the bureaucracy system also, but I know it will take a lot of time. But with students, if you want to bring a change before you leave college, we are
Yeah.
happy to come and do some presentation or workshops for you all. Okay.
Definitely,
Yeah.
I'll talk about this with the faculty, and I think they'll be really interested
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
taking
yeah.
more on
We
top.
could ask. So one of the ideas could be everybody can bring some clothes.
Yeah,
We're going to come and create dye vats, and you will upcycle your garments, whatever you've got.
perfect, amazing.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I'll talk to them about this.
Hmm.
Uh, okay. What would you say? What would you suggest are some skills, like maybe three skills that a student like me should develop before entering the industry?
Um, Cutting the crap. There is a lot of greenwashing.
Yes.
There is a lot of crap of big talks of making this whole system of making things big and grand and whatever. reaching where is, I mean, if you logically question, so suppose you just say you see a big company is doing really great things, like say H&M says that it's sustainable. Don't buy it, look into it. Why would H&M be sustainable? But people are very happy when H&M opens in any city. It's the one criminal. I mean, if you guys have watched True Cost, have you all? Did you all watch?
I haven't, but my friends have suggested it. Went
Okay.
off of Netflix before I could watch it.
Okay, but I think you'll find it somewhere. So that movie will tell you how much of blood is on the hands of fashion label, like like these. So what I'm saying is that everything that looks very grand and big, and all the people who talk too much, definitely question them. Look, what are they doing? Do they actually change anybody's life? Does their work impact anyone? Because all the claims on what people do and what they actually do are very two different things. So always know how to cut the crap and look beyond the big facade which is there for everything. That is one thing. Second skill is hands-on. I mean, experiment with things, I think. And don't be scared to fail. Don't be scared to make losses. This is a time when you can actually take a lot of risk. When you are old enough, after 30s and 40s, it's very difficult to take risks. You will stop taking risks. You will start living the safe life. So in this stage, while you still have your parents taking care of expenses, providing you bread, butter, and bed, I would say take and do adventurous things and break whatever rules and try things, experiment even if you fail, because what experience can give you, nothing else can give. No books can give you, no teachings can give you, no nothing. So as much of hands-on experience I think you can get. And third thing, um, there are a lot of things. I'm trying to just think about one more thing. I have sometimes a lot of complaints with young people. um, I think give me some time, okay? I want
Yeah,
to
take your time.
think carefully and tell. Yeah, a few minutes. Okay, tell me something. Okay, my partner is. I'm going to ask him. Come. What are the three things you would ask a young person to develop before they go out of design institutes and everything? Come here. Come sit. No, come. Okay, listen. Come. He's also my teacher, my companion, and my partner at work. That's Arun. That is, what's her name? I didn't pronounce it
I'm
very well.
Vaishnavi, and I'm a third year textile student in NID.
Yeah, NID. So she's taking an interview of mine. So she wants to ask three questions. So I said that first is learn to cut the crap of big things that look to you. And then second, I said that do hands-on experience while you still can. You're still experimental. What is the third thing?
She's asking your advice.
Yeah. When you're young and going out, what are the three skills you should have or you should develop?
You should start with zero. I mean, you should do anything as if it is very new to you. I mean, being what happens with these designing students, I've been interacting with a lot of these designing students, including NID and all. So first thing you should remember is that design is a creation. It cannot be learned. Only you can do is use your knowledge of how to use your designing skills. That is what is, I feel a lot of students forget that. They have to be in the process of creativity, not thinking that they already know the designs. That is what the biggest blockage is right now. The what you learn in the college is the how to create. These are tools, but they don't give you the skill for design is your own. So you should know that you are starting very blank, and if people are going to some place to learn design, they will have to first observe and take the design in themselves. Just knowing the block print and just going to a block printer to know that block printing, like what they're doing, is not possible, not at all. So it's you have to go deeper in that to understand. Then only you can learn design. This is what I feel.
Thank you, Arun.
Thank you.
So I think, yeah. I think what he's saying is that skill and technique are different from creativity. And yeah, I should start from zero from there. Okay.
And what industry concepts, maybe like sustainability or circular economy, do you feel like again, like a student like me should know before entering the industry?
Give me an example. I didn't understand your question very well.
Like some
Concept, you're saying?
yeah, industry
Okay.
concepts.
Um, so, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, if I got your question right. So, just see. So, one is that whatever you create is not only about the look of it. Like the visual appeal is gone. It's redundant to only look at visual appeal. The choice of material, what are you choosing, and whether it's biodegradable or not. How will, so when you're sourcing it, what does it do? Does it exploit that area or dirty that area, and whatever it happens? And then when you're giving it to a consumer, because the consumer will throw it any day, I mean after use. So what will happen for the before and after of the product?
Right.
I mean, everybody gives thought to the life of the product, that the people will like it, this design is good, they'll love to keep it in the house, but how much will they use? There should be something durable. And when they die, when the product dies, and from where this product came from, what are the sourcing parts of? We don't have to look, COVID has taught us to be local. We don't have to import a herb from Africa and America and then make something in India. In India, we have so much. Why not work from here? That was not globalization. That's a wrong, I think, effect of globalization, that we've started using so much of carbon footprint to just transport apples from there and this from
Yeah.
there and whatever. So that is one thing. Look at your material use and everything. Second thing is packaging. I think packaging is a very, very huge industry, which is used a lot in industry. It's at every process. So, and when you're working in an industry, there's no time to think about pack. It's the least neglected area. Like, you know, people make focus on the product, and then the how it will go. Nobody has time and energy and money to put in to get a creative solution there, because the amount of time you're going to put in designing a sustainable packaging, you would rather spend it on doing social media or doing a product design or whatever, because that is giving you money. The customer doesn't pay you for packaging, so of course you don't spend money on packaging. But I think packaging, if you're in a sustainable industry, is extremely important. It should be, I believe that packaging at least should be from upcycled products or recycled, not virgin material at all. That's my only solution I can think of. And of course you have to have a very questioning mind, and that anything can happen, in the sense that whatever the industry is doing, uh, sustainability gives and needs a fresh look into everything. Like whatever has been done or has been on, that need not be used anymore. Like you can, in a flick of a second, you could actually have a brilliant idea. So don't question yourself, and always question the processes that you are supposed to learn and follow. So I think that's really important. Use your common sense, and anybody can have an idea. You don't have to be a design student for it. You don't have to be a very educated person or a very senior person. Even as a student, you could have a brilliant idea, which probably the owner of the company has not seen. So I mean, ideas can come to anyone if you can question. Yeah. I think these few things I feel. And definitely stick and give it some time. Don't leave one industry for another very soon, because that doesn't, yeah, I think so. That's one problem which people have with young people, that they change so too soon before it's time to learn.
Right. So when you joined and where you're right now, do you feel like your beliefs or your models or your incentive for doing what you do has changed in any way?
Yeah, it is. It has, I would say, I don't know what to say, evolved, but it has changed a lot. Yeah, it has changed a lot. It's become wider and wider and wider. I thought something, and then I found something, and then I found something else. So all the ideas that we can work in our minds and on a presentation, when you come on the flow, everything goes for a toss, you know, and there are new things happening. So this is one thing I've learned, that you have to be very humble. You could, like I have I told this to these interns also when I was taking an interview, that when you go to a handicraft cluster and you feel, wow, you're so you can give something to these artisans and teach them which they don't know. But I think first the need is to see what the context is very important. What we do is whatever we learn, we try to fit everything everywhere, which doesn't make sense. We have to look at the context, whether what you've learned will it fit in or not. That humility is required to see. And then, as Arun said, like begin from a fresh start. That's important. Yeah. So humility for sure.
Right. Okay. And and other than the things that have changed for you, what has been constant throughout?
That that being in harmony with nature, being one with nature, being close to nature, being respectful to nature is extremely rewarding, and there's no other way. You could come to this realization at any point in your life. You can take 50 years, 60 years out on your deathbed, maybe on next lifetime. But this is the truth. You cannot move away from it. That is for sure. Yeah, chal. Any more? So I'll have to go now.
Yeah,
If
sure.
you
No
can,
problem.
if there is
Yeah,
any
that
more
was my
question,
last.
you can
I just have one
tell
last.
me something. If you can give me, yeah, sure. Will you make a write up on this or something? Then you can also share it with me.
Yes,
Are
I'll
you going to
transcribe it and I can send it to you. I'm supposed to make a presentation
do that?
and then
Sure.
you share both actually.
Do it around and then share it with me. Okay, but your questions are very nice, so I'm happy to share it with other people as well.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Tell me, what's your last question?
And
You
yeah,
have something?
where do you see the future of textile design going? And do you feel like it's evolving and adapting to the rate that it should be moving at?
So the demand has come in for sustainable textiles, for natural dyes. Demand has definitely come in because from everywhere the queries have just jumped a lot. But the understanding of the people to accept a change and to really apply the change has not come in. It's still stuck there. So they are trying to find some shortcut or some other way to work around it. I think we're not yet addressing the problem that our mindset of the people who make textiles have to change. So a leader of a company deciding that we'll go sustainable for a company is not enough. That leader has to do a mindset exercise with the whole team, from laborer to dyer to everybody in the team, to talk. So these are not things which you can, there's a word called, you can't trust these things on people and say, start doing this. So there's a lot of time to be spent on creating awareness and connections with the team and people to adopt this and adapt this. So it is coming from somewhere, like say global leaders in United Nations or some convention decided that everybody has to go natural. But on application level, it'll never come. Corruption will come and everybody will say, see, I have a certificate that I'm natural, but they may not be natural at all. So if you're going to force it like from top to bottom like that, just do this because, some intelligent people in United Nations decided that, okay, we should do that. That's not going to help. What needs is a bottom top approach, which means that as a community, we need to start having these conversations. First, if you are going to empower people with understanding what is organic, why we should do it, like the government probably should spend more money on creating awareness first and then saying, okay, use this. Or then saying to companies also, okay, make this. Because once you work with the consumers, I think they will demand this. If they demand, the companies will be happy to change because they'll be getting money for it also. Like for them, nothing matters except the profit line. So that will not happen if the government told, because then they'll find ways to work around it. It's a painful task to change. So many people who've been dying with chemical dyes. I'm only talking in context of dyes all the time. Uh, we have worked with so many industries where they want to change and they feel, yeah, if you want to work, you want to work, and then nothing works out because all their team leaders and something is not working out. There's a lot of politics, bureaucracy, and those things don't come on the floor. So a lot of conversation and mindset change has to happen. Only this, some people deciding a change will not help. It helps because if government starts giving subsidy for natural dyes, maybe it'll push the sector. Right now, if you know that chemical dyes have subsidies, natural dyes have 18% GST. Earlier also pesticides were subsidized. Okay, now organic farming is being pushed. So thing is ki incentives work, but they only work at an incentive level.
Yeah.
Education and empowerment and awareness is what is needed for people to change. Otherwise, what they're going to do is a simple example. Pesticide was supposed to be used in a particular quantity by people for growth of whatever, taking care of things. But when it reached, say, the fields of Punjab, where the farmers are not educated, they thought, acha, isko dala itna to itna, I mean, such a good crop came, let me put more, then more good will happen. What happened? They started poisoning the soil and poisoning the food also. So the thing is that if you give like a knife in the hands of a person who doesn't know how to use, he will not do surgery, he will kill a person. It's as simple as that. So yeah, you have to give that skill training, which is the most difficult task.
Yeah.
And nobody spends money on that. Even the money which is spent is not really used well. So yeah.
Yes, I think that was my last question for you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for
Okay.
sharing
Thank
everything that you
you.
did. It was very helpful.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, and it's nice to see a bright smile and face which is eager to learn and understand. I hope I've given you some fresh inputs and not the boring
Definitely
things
a
which
lot to
you
think
know.
about as well.
Okay. All right. Hope to see you sometime.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Bye bye. See you.